After largely focusing on the entertainment and tech industries, the MeToo movement has hit the banking world. Last week, two major headlines rocked the industry. First, Wells Fargo announced it will no longer require arbitration when employees file sexual harassment claims. Second, PNC Bank was ordered to pay $2.4 million to a former employee in her sexual harassment case.
So Jennifer Kingson is the managing editor for business news at Axios and is joining us now with more on this. So Jennifer, thanks for joining us. And I mentioned to you that Vlad, who had worked in the financial services industry, a year ago had said to me, I wonder why this hasn't hit the banking industry yet. And so now here we are. But why has it taken so long?
Because of what was known as an epidemic of arbitration clauses that banks started to institute really in 2015 on. Banking is a highly regulated industry, unlike entertainment and media and the technology sector. So banks keep a very close grip on their employees and customers. When this epidemic of arbitration clauses happened, employees were forced to sign clauses saying that they gave up their right to go to court to handle any disputes that came up with the bank, including sexual harassment, racial harassment, and other types of claims. At the same time, as we know, in the fine print of many of the documents we have to sign when we become a customer of the bank, there are mandatory arbitration clauses so that customers are subject to the same process.
So what does it mean then that Wells Fargo says it's going to drop mandatory arbitration for employee sexual harassment complaints? How will that shape the industry?
My sources say that Wells Fargo is the first of the big banks, which include Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, and so forth, to drop the mandatory arbitration clause regarding employees. It does not apply to customers. Right. The bank itself said that it was under pressure to do so by some activist investors who were bringing up a proposal to make the bank do this. But nevertheless, the bank did it, which means that no longer will employees who have sexual harassment complaints have to go into a secret arbitration process in which an arbitrator will determine their fate. Studies have shown that when arbitration happens versus a hearing in open court, plaintiffs tend to lose 3 times more because it's an individual going up against a big, powerful company, and because they don't have the resources or experience.
So will this apply, though, to past harassment claims?
No, it's only going forward.
So one of the things I think one of the things we talked about, Anne-Marie, a couple of years ago was the fact that in the entertainment industry and in the media world, generally the accusations have come from people who were facing very powerful individuals, like a Harvey Weinstein, somebody who had enormous power, wielded enormous power to shape a person's career. In the finance world, what I had noticed in talking to my friends who were still in the industry is that you would sometimes find women who were at the very top of their profession in a bank or in an investment bank or at a hedge fund who would be dealing with harassment from men who were junior employees. In other words, a young associate comes into the bank working on an investment banking deal with a bunch of senior people, including women, would, in this sort of bro culture that exists at these banks, treat women who were their superiors, but in an inferior way. And I thought that was sort of an interesting dynamic that did not exist, seemingly, in the entertainment and the media world.
In the entertainment and media world, which is where the Me Too movement really first emerged, you had Bill Cosby, Harvey Weinstein, Roger Ailes. Then it migrated to the technology world, where we've seen Facebook, Microsoft, other companies dropping their mandatory arbitration for sexual harassment in the wake of, say, the Travis Kalanick episode. Uber and Lyft have also dropped theirs. Now that banking is in the crosshairs, the first wave of claims that we're seeing come from wealth management, which is in which a lot of attractive women are on the front lines trying to get wealthy customers to invest their money with the bank.
Right.
I saw one study in American Banker that wealth management is by far the place where the most claims come from,
Right.
as opposed to, say, the teller line or the executive suite.
Yeah, because oftentimes
because that's a place where there are a lot of women working
Yes.
compared to other
a lot
departments,
of
I
women,
guess?
and a lot of the whining and dining is literally whining and dining of clients,
Right.
where you go out and you know,
off work hours or
to
over
reel
lunch.
that large individual.
interesting.
People are eager
wealthy
to
individual.
please, so the harassment comes from both customers and fellow bankers.
Right. So listen, I want to really quickly ask you about this PNC Bank case, order to pay $2.4 million to a former employee in a sexual harassment case. This is different than what people are probably thinking. This is not superior or employees working together. This is something else.
It's just what we were talking about.
The plaintiff, Damara Scott, started with the bank as a teller in 1998 before there were mandatory arbitration clauses. She worked her way up the ladder. She was working in wealth management at a branch in New Jersey. A client who was, according to her, known as a groper, followed her out of the bank and pressed himself against her in the parking lot. And according to her claim, the bank did not do anything when she complained. The bank is appealing the decision, and they say they have zero tolerance for sexual harassment, and that they're claiming that the court made errors in the case.
And that's basically their response to the verdict, that there are errors in the case and that they have a zero tolerance policy.
That they have sexual harassment training. They say that the customer in question was not considered dangerous.
Okay, Jennifer, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for
great.
having me.
Thank you so much for coming by.